Okay, something that's been bothering me for some time is the way in which the left seem to have developed a narrative that the BBC is biased towards the Tory government. Now, someone could write a thesis about the relationship between Her Majesty's government and the BBC, but I'm not here for that. What concerns me is the way in which people are so quick to write off reporting as biased these days, particularly on Twitter. If the BBC's political editor Laura Kuenssberg posts a tweet that's even mildly critical of Labour, you'll instantly find a stream of responses, often abusive, along the lines of typical BBC bias. However, when Kuenssberg posts something which could be seen as critical of the government, there's an almost radio silence, sometimes peppered with a few comments along the lines of, "Are you feeling alright?" or "Falling out with your friends?" Now, if you ever confront someone for doing this, you'll probably get a variation of this meme, because we all know the most intelligent way to win an argument is with an image you've nicked off someone else's timeline. This meme relates to the fact that the BBC Trust once found that a section of a single news report misrepresented comments made by Jeremy Corbyn. Corbyn was shown answering a question on screen, but the voiceover which preceded it implied it was the answer to a slightly different question. Now, putting aside the fact that this meme uses the findings of a BBC investigation to demonstrate the BBC's so-called bias, the investigation actually found no evidence of bias, and the news report was compiled in good faith. Still, this one straw from November 2015 is being clutched like hell, and they are not letting go. It's worth noting that Kuenssberg was instrumental in getting the BBC to allow journalists a presence on Twitter 10 years ago. She passionately felt it was an exciting opportunity to interact with the public about politics. She now feels unable to check the comments on her own Twitter feed, often has to travel with security, and was famously hissed during a Labour press conference.
Laura Kuenssberg from the BBC.
Thank you very much.
Is this the kind of politics Corbyn promoted when he first became leader? On Fiona Bruce's first edition of Question Time, her grilling of Tory MP James Cleverly resulted in high praise, with many calling her a breath of fresh air compared to David Dimbleby, who was often written off as being part of the Old Boys network.
Our plan is on the table.
No, I just asked you, what is your plan B? You said, I'm going to tell you what plan B is, but I don't know, have I missed it?
No.
1 week later, she dared to challenge darling of the left Diane Abbott, and all hell broke loose. Bruce was slated, with some calling for a resignation just 2 weeks into a new job. By the way, whenever an audience member speaks out in support of the Tories, they're often referred to as plants. Plants, because of course it's impossible that anyone in the audience could feasibly support our democratically elected government. I mean, who voted for them? Incidentally, whenever the issue of Brexit comes up on Question Time, it's quite amusing to see the BBC referred to as the Brussels Broadcasting Corporation and the Brexit Broadcasting Corporation on Twitter, simultaneously, depending on that person's viewpoint. Quite how one can be biased to both sides of the argument is a mystery to me. The reason all this bothers me so much is that I'm uncomfortable with an important media outlet being undermined for the sake of it, just to further a political narrative. It's something that Trump has attempted to do in the States, where it's often implied that he deliberately weakens trust in the media so the public won't believe them when they report on seriously critical matters.
You are fake news.
Yes, the BBC and all media outlets should be held to account, but by writing off news as bias without cause, it disrupts the faith we put in them to hold politicians to account, and I really feel the BBC do this. For instance, they've laid into the Prime Minister again and again and again.
You're very happy to repeatedly criticise the Labour Party, but for your own plans, you're reluctant to give us very much detail at all.
And we now get stories again from the RCN of lots of ordinary nurses by the end of the week having to use food banks because they can't afford to pay for food. That is not the kind of country that you want to run, is it?
How can it be honest, Prime Minister, to reject a cap in your manifesto and 4 days later say, we're going to have a cap? What's honest about that?
Any other tragedy, flooding, you would have had the army there, you would have had organisers. I was there on the ground, I saw the chaos for myself. There was no one in charge and there was nobody willing to accept responsibility.
Prime Minister, thank you.
So please, if a broadcast media outlet reports on a party you support in a negative light, it's not automatically fake news or bias. So make sure you listen, weigh up the evidence and draw your own intelligent conclusion.